the citizens of today, we don't realise that we're sovereign beings. So you don't actually need representation at court from a solicitor or a lawyer. You can actually represent yourself, especially if it's the civil jurisdiction, the civil courts, family courts, county courts. You don't need a solicitor whatsoever. You can actually just go to the court, pick up the relevant application forms and other relevant paperwork, fill those out, submit them, and before you know it, you've got a court date.
Where do you get the confidence to be able to stand in front of the judiciary, argue with confidence? I mean, where do you get that from?
I don't have the confidence, Martin.
What is it then? What is it that drives you to stand up and take the system on?
I think it's when you say that, the family jurisdiction just came into my head. I'd like to say that this is going to sound hard. It's very, very demoralizing to go into a white court in front of 2 to 3 white judges and asking those, or shall I say, begging those 3 white judges if I can see my black child or not. To get the confidence to go into a state apparatus such as that and vocalize that, it takes an incredible amount of
Would you say
courage.
Then it's more about trying to be fearless in terms of not showing fear about taking on the system? Because a lot of people listening to this, they're going to fear. Because a lot of people sometimes people are victims of injustice. Some people struggle with the system, don't have confidence. Yet you come along and you challenged. You're not standing there as a barrister or a solicitor. You're representing yourself. So how do if you was somebody's listening to this, what would you want advice would you want to give to them about how they can actually articulate themselves effectively?
Again, Martin, this might sound very, very biased. Every time I've entered any of the criminal jurisdictions, whether it be family court, magistrates court, crown court, I always tend to try to have a rapport with the judges. In any of the cases that I've had, I've always sent the judges a position statement on what I feel about these proceedings. And I've always attributed race and anthropology into the discussion as well. It's very, very easy to talk about criminology or practice criminology on a solitary basis. If you're not adding race and intersectionality into the debate, I personally believe that the people who you're speaking to are not going to look at you as credible.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you mentioned the word credibility. Why is it that you've never gone and studied law or become a barrister or a lawyer? Because, or do you feel that occupying a space outside of the system makes you more effective? I mean, because I'm listening to you and thinking to myself, well, why don't you just become a solicitor? Because with your knowledge and insight, so what stops you from doing that?
I couldn't practice law or anything like that, Martin, because I do have a civil criminal record. I do have a few offences on my record, albeit those offences are now spent offences. So if I was to take a course and be a lawyer, as you say, I would only be able to teach it. I wouldn't be able to practice it.
But for you, where does this, we're going into Brexit, we're in the era of Donald Trump, we're coming into a new election. How important is politics to you then?
Politics is very important to me. As a member of the West African Afro-Caribbean community, I'd say that a lot of us are politically mute. We think that we're exempt from everything that politics is throwing at society at large.
So when you think about now, as I said, we've just triggered an election. We've got Article 50 has been triggered for Brexit. What's your thoughts about the importance of the community getting more involved in politics based on what's happening at this moment in time?
I'm going to say the black community. I don't think the black community should really be taking on politics as such, because it doesn't matter how much voting blocks we conjure up. If we're not going to be funding politicians to sort of carry out our agenda, our votes don't mean anything.
So if there was a thing called Ithamar's Manifesto, what are 3 or 4 things that you think would be in your manifesto then? In terms of, if you was given a manifesto to the black community, what would some of the things be?
That's a very good question, Martin.
I mean, would you want everybody to be like yourself, i.e. motivated, challenging, taking the system on? What I'm dealing with is what would you want of the black community at this moment in time?
Well, as I said at the beginning of the show, Martin, when I gave my title, I'm a nationalist. Now, corporate media and other people might interpret that as being a terrorist or some other sort of name calling, which I don't want to get into. The word nationalist actually means is a group of people that believe in the right to self-govern and should police themselves.
But in saying that, I mean, there's some people out there, if you look at the BNP, the EDL, they refer to themselves as white nationalists that feel that in a racialized context that white people should have the right to self-determination, hence putting a cap on things like immigration. So how would you respond to critics who say that nationalism as a political expression is quite damaging to society, to a liberal society?
White nationalism does exist. However, I've heard a few scholars say the same thing that I'm about to say, and I'm in total agreement with those scholars as well. White nationalism, for the most part, does tend to hide their true intentions, which really is white racism and white non-integration.
So what does your form of nationalism mean? Is it fully
self-determination?
Self-determination.
Self-determination. But at the same time, black people suffer from a lack of being industrious. We absolutely, positively refuse to bind our resources together. We absolutely and positively envy one another. I mean...
So why do you think that is? Because obviously you're painting a picture that within the community there's division, there is difference. What do you put that down to?
Martin, a man will hate you if you're wearing a pair of Air Jordans and he's wearing a pair of Reeboks. A man will hate you just because you're walking down the road and you've got a beautiful woman on your arm.
So would you say that what you're really talking about is it about the politics of nationalism, or is it the politics of unification and human rights?
Yeah, I would say that. I've been reading a lot about human rights recently, Martin. The law lords, I was speaking to Richard about it the other day. He was telling me that the guys in the House of Commons sort of tried to lobby to get rid of the law lords, the House of Lords. I was like, whoa. If they were to do that, a lot of our human rights, civil and human rights, would disappear, because the law lords, they make up part of British legal history and have done for the past 800 to 1,000 years. So if they was to veto to get rid of the law lords, things would be a lot more detrimental than what they are today in 2017.
Now, I know you're in your 30s, yeah. So in order for you to get to my age, which is nearly 60, you've still got a long way to go. So, there's a lot of people out there right now.
You're not old, Martin. It's called wisdom.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question, though. In terms of preparation for survival over the next, 20, 30 years, what's the strategy in place to make sure that you don't die, burn out, mash yourself up? Because remember, our living in the inner city is hard, right? Living in the ends is hard. So how does a young man who's passionate, father, activist, what is it you need to do so that you just don't have a breakdown? Because a lot of us have had breakdowns.
It's going to sound negative, Martin, and I noticed that people of today, especially in my age group, 1980s babies upwards, a lot of them are sort of being indoctrinated with this quote-unquote humble mentality. Being humble is not a great virtuous human virtue. Humbleness leaves you exposed. Humbleness leaves you open. But to answer the question, I would have to give the advice what I'd give myself and what I've done myself is I've had to literally isolate myself away from people. Martin, you can ask anybody that knows me. You try and phone me, it's going to be very, very hard for me.
I can
very
say,
hard.
Let me ask you a question though. When you relax, because obviously there's a high octane life that you have just in terms of energy. What do you do when you relax? I mean, do you watch crap TV? Do you do yoga? I mean, what do you do when you relax?
I've got a recliner chair at home. I like to kick back in my recliner.
Yeah, so and do you watch TV?
Kick
do you
my
listen to
laptop
music?
on, put my laptop speaker in, and just see what's out there.
What's your favourite music?
Favorite music?
Yeah.
Martin, I am in love with instrumentals right now, hip-hop instrumentals. All I listen to is instrumentals. If you check out...
Is that because deep down you like to spit couple bars?
Yeah. A lot of the public don't know that I do actually rap.
So
as well.
are you a secret rapper then?
People don't know. I don't want to say I'm a secret rapper. I'd say I'm more of a poet. I wouldn't say I'm a rapper.
Have you got a couple lines that you want to spit right now?
No, definitely not. Don't,
no,
Martin,
no,
please.
you're all right.
No,
okay.
No bars.
All right, let me bring it back. When you think of the future of the way the community is, because right now there's a lot of youths, there's a lot of people in distressed states, like what you was when we first started speaking. If there were three things that you could say, I mean, three key things that you'd want to say to the road right now. And I'm talking about the road that wants to do something to assist, to build. What are the two or three things that you'd like to present?
Discipline, having a good amount of discipline.
Where do people get that from? Because if you're living a chaotic life, how do you get discipline?
Your parents.
What if you haven't got parents, though? Remember, you talked about the way that you...
That's an open debate then, Martin. If you ain't got... That's an open debate because if you ain't got parents to sort of instill discipline from an early age, it's going to be very, very hard.
So we need adult guidance. That's what you basically...
We need guidance.
All right, so we've got the guidance.
Because your discipline, if you've got a high level of discipline, that's going to seriously increase the quality of your existence.
Couple more.
Money. Sounds cliche, but money. Nothing happens without a financial backative and a financial ethos behind it.
So an economic development plan.
As you know, Martin, you're a PhD. You know, you got your PhD in, 24 months? All crime is centered around poverty. All crime is... When you look at the prison population, 80% of them are in there to do with monetary offences.
So one final thing before we conclude.
Faith. You got to have faith. You got to believe in yourself because you're going to have people trying to castigate you. You're going to have character assassinations being thrown at you, whether they're public character assassinations or online character assassinations. I've had those, and I know firsthand that more character assassinations are coming. I don't know when they're coming or where they're coming or who's going to be coming with them, but I know that they're going to be coming. And I've got to brace myself for those. In
criminology, that's what we call social bonding. Good parents, economic foundation, and with a strong belief in something to build social and cultural capital.
Don't let nobody discourage you.
Well, on that
you're going to lose people. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose family. You're going to lose friends. We're going to have people that are going to drop you like a bad habit. But if you know what you're doing is for the greater good of the people.
Well, something on that note. We've come to the end of this interview, and I just want to say I want to thank my guest.
Already? I was just getting warmed up.
Yeah, I can see that, Bridget. Wow. I can see that. We'll probably come back for a part two. I want to thank my guest, Ithamar, who's been stimulating, and I want to thank you for the insight. And I just want to finish off by saying, and I want to remind people that the Roadman's Guide is about the community for the community, as you've just heard. And I want to remind people about what we call, on the Roadman's Guide, the 5 R's. Read, write, research, recharge, and rest. Until next time, stay safe, walk good, and bring light into the darkness. Peace.